Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today we start a new adventure with Paul Dale Roberts. And I will let him tell you about it. Paul, tell us about your new show, Paul's Pop Culture.
Man, I'm telling you, it's going to be a good show tonight because we got three guests, not one, not two, but three. We have Tim Schwartz, and he just put out a book. I got the book right over here. It's called Persistence of Ghosts, and he's been involved with all kinds of books. He's put out a book called Mimics, Weird Time, Jeff the Talking Mongoose, and even Nicholas Tesla. And he's been on History Channel's Greatest Mysteries, William Shatner's The Unexplained, Ancient Aliens, and he recently was on Coast to Coast AM, but he's been on there a few times with George Norrie. Um, then comic books. I love comic books. When I was a kid, I had all these comic books, and I'll tell you a quick story. But my mother, she says, you got comic books all over the place. And she says, if you don't get rid of these comic books by the weekend, she goes, I'm throwing them away. I said, what? You're going to throw away my comic books? Are you kidding me? And it was one day, my parents took off. My brother was supposed to watch over me, but he was too interested in this girl down the street. So he left the house, went to see the girl. And during that time, I took all my comic books and crawled underneath the crawl space in Monterey, California. This is where the house was, and hid those comic books. To this day, those comic books are probably still there and probably worth some money. So the people that live in that house in Monterey, they're probably sitting on a fortune. And they're so lucky. Anyway, we have a whole panel of people that will be listening to everything that's going on. And for everybody, if you have any questions or comments or anything, please feel free to jump in. Just say, hey, I want to say something. Um, I'm going to go ahead and let the panel introduce themselves. I'll start off with Steve Ward. Just say your name and a little bio about who you are.
Steve Ward. You can find me on Facebook. I'm originally from Michigan, but I'm living in West by God, Virginia now, in Point Pleasant. Live on the same road that the Scarberries and the Mallets were chased by the Mothman on November 15th, 1966. I work at the Mothman Museum. I do a lot of sort of Mothman 101 podcasts, and I'm very involved with the Mothman Festival coming up this September. I also have a podcast called The High Strangeness Factor on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.
Fantastic. And Sage Gatto.
Hi, my name's Sage Gatto. I'm a paranormal investigator and psychic medium from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I am also a cast member on the Tennessee Wraith Chasers' newest TV show, Ghost Mob St. Albans. You can find us on YouTube and on Prime Video. It's a whole series, but I was lucky to be a part of one of their episodes, so that was pretty cool.
Fantastic. Michael Kopf.
I'm Michael Kopf. I am a paranormal investigator, and grew up in the metaphysics. I'm an author. You can find my books on Amazon. You can find me on Facebook. And I am the podcast host of The Energy That Surrounds Us and Writing Through the Unknown. And whenever Hercules and Paul allow me to be on panels.
Okay. Cool. All right. Okay, well, that's our panel. And we'll probably start off with Matt and Cory to talk about their creations. Cory came up with Sato Cat. Matt has this rabbit character that has one ear. Very cool characters. I could see these characters becoming cartoons in the future. And then afterwards, we're going to have a whole round table. Oh, of course, This show is produced by Hercules Invictus, and he's part of the panel. Hercules, go ahead and give a little bio on who you are.
Hercules, I'm a producer. I'm part of this panel. I'm also a paranormal researcher. I'm an author. I'm a lecturer, and I'm a mythical persona.
Fantastic, fantastic. And after all this is said and done, we're going to be talking about our favorite movies, favorite TV shows, horror, sci-fi, fantasy, drama, adventure, comic books, pulp magazines. And I know Steve Ward is about as old as I am, so he knows about them pulp magazines and any kind of books you want to talk about. So anyway, we'll start the thing off with Matt and Cory. Matt and Cory, tell us about your comic book.
You want to go for it?
Sure, I'll go for it. So, our comic company, our comic studio, we call it Plotless Comics, and we kind of started that name because when we started out drawing our characters and our comic books, we were essentially just folding sheets of paper in half and drawing a comic book with no solid plan. We just kind of making it up as we go. And Matt, yeah, he has a character there, the slightly insane, spontaneously combusting, frothing mutant ninja black belt samurai rabbit walrus from hell. And that kind of in 1992, I saw him starting to draw that, and I had a batch of characters that I was drawing, trying to do a comic strip with, and but he was having a lot of fun with that in a comic book format. And so I created Satyr Cat right around that time, and it brought in a lot of my other characters into my book. And then we have a shared universe where these kind of superpowered animals who think they're great, but probably cause more harm than good as they go around trying to fight evil with no clear definition of what evil looks like. And so we have a lot of fun. They're kind of hyper violent and packed with comedy and parody and satire and things like that. So we have a lot of fun with it. We just kind of have evolved it over the years, and the last 10 years or so, I started going out to shows and kind of upping the production quality of our comic books. And so now we've got a lot of comics out, especially Matt's got quite a few Rabbit Wars comics out and a few trade paperbacks. I've got a collection of a Satyr Cat here with the 3 issues printed so far. But
and you guys do your own artwork, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Matt writes and draws Rabbit Walrus primarily, and I write and draw Satyr Cat primarily. Those are our 2 main titles, and but we use each other's characters and do a lot of crossover storylines and things.
We collaborate and have storylines, even though we're called Plotless Comics.
Wow.
I have 2 books out. This is my first volume here, and then I got my second volume here. This is the one that Kit Wallace did the cover, where they meet Ewoks and eat Ewoks and wear their skins.
Wow, that's cool. I mean, so how did you 2 meet?
We were friends in high school, and we became surf buddies, and we both liked comics and drawing and playing Mortal Kombat. So we would hang out and draw, eat cereal late into the night, and try to get the finishing moves to work on our Sega, which had the finishing moves at the time. Nintendo wouldn't do it.
So you guys are saying you were geeks?
Yeah, pretty much. we would spend all our time,
but still cool because we were surfers.
You don't even have to read between the lines. We're all geeks.
We'd stop off at every comic book store between Fremont and Half Moon Bay, and hit the stores to eat, buy Count Chocula cereal and Marshmallow Peeps. Then spend all night watching MTV.
Had to keep up your energy. I mean, come on.
Sure.
Your artwork is just fantastic. So how did you guys become such good artists?
I just started drawing when I was really young. I started doing my own comics, just making up for myself. I forgot my very first comic was a bunch of little ninja guys, and I would have them go through all these different booby traps. So I'd have a little story where there'd be alligators and sharks and spikes and pits, and I'd have a little ninja guy go through. I drew those in like maybe first or second grade. And then I actually was the original inventor of the Burger Wars. When I was a kid in I think first or second grade, I would draw these hamburgers. I'd draw a McDonald's and a Burger King, and then I would draw hamburgers until they filled the entire page, pretending that they were throwing burgers at each other. So it was kind of an entertaining thing to do. And then later on, like always, the robots stole my ideas, and everybody else used it.
Yeah, I became enamored of the comic strips in the newspapers, and I had decided from a pretty young age I wanted to be a comic strip artist. And it wasn't until high school that I kind of got more into comic books, and I'd been drawing a whole bunch of my original characters in a comic strip format. But then when I got into comic books, I kind of just took those characters and put them in more of a comic book reality, and so it became superhero animals but they it definitely has, I feel like, a comic strip feel to the art, but in a comic book format now. So it's kind of that's where I get told a lot that my artwork is very clean. It's a lot of lines and color and things like that. So I think that's because of the comic strip roots. I was a big fan of Garfield and then Bloom County and Calvin and Hobbes eventually, as those kind of came out, and so I pick up a few things from each of those creators. I think the way I drew Satyr Cat's ears originally was very Garfield inspired, and the way I draw my character's arms is kind of Peanuts and inspired, and then just all the other reckless stuff that we do has probably got some Ren and Stimpy influence and some.
So were those the first comics that really drew your attention as a kid?
Yeah, I collected. Yeah, when I was really young, I collected a lot of Garfield, and then when I was probably, around 6th or 7th grade, I stumbled on Bloom County in a library, and I probably, a lot of the jokes went over my head when I was young and stuff. But I really enjoyed all those characters and the way that kind of ensemble cast that he had going with Bill the Cat and Opus and everybody, and so that stayed with me quite a bit. And of course, the imagination that is in the Calvin and Hobbes comic strips is always really fun. So just kind
of Spaceman Spiff.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love it when he's confronting some kind of a horrible alien creature, and then it turns out it's his teacher, Mrs. Wormwood.
in their true forms.
Yes. For me, it was
actually.
I think. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say that it reminds me of when I was in high school. At one point, I made a wanted poster out of one of my teachers. They were selling all the yearbook photos for like 10 cents, and I saw they had a picture of my teacher, so I bought it for 10 cents and made a wanted poster and hung it up at school. I got suspended on the last day of school for this, but it was that was my Calvin and Hobbes moment doing.
a badge of honor. They probably deserved it anyway. Yeah, for me it was I think maybe Flash Gordon in the Sunday paper. That's how old I am. And
Nice.
And then I discovered, of course, the DC comics, Batman, Superman, and Justice League, and all that. But then when I came across what was to become Marvel, their monster comics, before that second wave of superheroes came in, like Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, but the Journey into Mystery, Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense. Man, I was in seventh heaven, and there was only a couple stores in my area that would have those comics. Everybody else had DC, but I had to walk all over the place, and I had to kind of gauge in my mind, okay, is this the time of the month when the new comics come out? Sometimes I'd miss it by a week, and so I'd come up empty-handed. But those are good memories, and I drew my own comic strips too, like many kids did. So it was, and my mom also threatened to throw out my comics, and she did one time. And my grandmother came to me and said, "Hey, Steve, she threw out your comics." So I retrieved them and I hid them. To this day, I thank Grandma.
Yeah.
No, that's a good grandma.
Whoa. Do you guys do any crossovers?
We haven't branched out too much outside of our own universe. I don't know. Although Matt does a lot of unofficial crossover.
I do has some cameos. If you flip through my books, you might see Lucy from Peanuts being skewered, or some of the. I have one where Jason and the Saw characters. He's talking to them during an investigation, but he finds that they're not at fault, and he blames Hello Kitty and Pikachu. So little things like that.
Well, that's
We've had friends of ours say, "Oh, I've got a comic book character. Would you put him in your comic?" And I'm like, "Sure." But then they get a little disappointed when they see that my character pretty much just kills anybody he meets. So their characters don't usually fare very well.
well,
We had
that
a friend that created
You guys-
a character called
you
the
guys
Brimstone Boar, and Cory drew a whole issue of Sato Cat killing him. And my favorite line is Brimstone Boar busts into like a 7-Eleven. He says, "Pork rinds, I'll teach you to sell pork rinds." And he blows up the 7-Eleven, and then Sato Cat shows up, and he ends up being bacon at the end, basically.
Well, you guys go to a lot of comic book conventions, so you probably now meet a lot of the comic book creators, correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
we've met quite a few.
Okay. Do you guys know who Ron Lim is?
Yeah.
Well, this is what Ron Lim did to my character. He had, if you can see that, he had
Oh, nice.
character. Yeah, what's happening, man? Beat up my character, the legendary Dark Silhouette.
Oh, wow. Awesme.
But that's
awesome.
So you're not the only one who does it, Cory.
Yeah,
every-
I'm gonna have to send my character over to you guys so you can keep him living. Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. Do you guys remember when you were first able to actually read the comics? The reason I asked that is my neighbor, he had some of those monster comics. And it was, I don't know, first grade or whatever. I'd pick up the comic book and I'd pretend like I could read it, but I hadn't learned to read yet. One day I was over there and I picked up that same comic and I thought, holy crap, I can read this. I'm actually reading what's in the word balloons and understanding it. And I learned words like awesome, android, omen, great stuff like that. So I don't know, did you guys have a transition like that where you thought, oh, wow, I can read this now?
I don't really remember a transition like that myself, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I kind of learned I was raised on some of the educational television, like the Electric Company and Sesame Street and things like that. And my parents told me I learned to read like at 3 or something. My dad said he looked down one day, I was 3 years old, and I had written down Columbia Broadcasting System on a piece of paper, except for I was asking my dad, how do you spell system? Because I had spelled it with an I and it didn't look right to my 3-year-old eyes. So he was like, okay.
Well, I had a second grade teacher that she was Mrs. Tom. She had a temper. We called her Mrs. Tom the Atom Bomb. Anyway, she told my mom that I'll never be a reader. And my mom was so pissed off. She said, you can stay up for an extra half hour every night and we'll read. And so I did. And I'm a voracious reader, have been for years. But, if my parents had listened to that backwards teacher, I might be still, just looking at the pictures.
I like how it rhymes. Mrs. Tom, the Atom Bomb, told my mom.
Yeah.
I have an
idea for your next trip.
I have an interesting question for you, Cory and Matt. When you first published, or made your books with your comics in it, did you get that euphoric feeling of, oh my God, this is now real? And how did you celebrate that?
Yeah,
it was actually really cool being at the first WonderCon when it was back in San Francisco, back when it was good. Because I was at the same place where we met Alex Ross and a bunch of other artists for the first time, because the very first comic convention I ever went to was WonderCon, and they had a bunch of artists there. And I'm like, dude, I'm on the other side of the table now, and I have my books here. And we had my first published work was my Star Wars spoof, which is probably my most popular book. And I had a kid that was coming around the show, and every time I drew an original artwork, he actually bought it right off of me as soon as it was done. And then uh, some guy took a picture of us and did an article about us that first show, and it was pretty exciting. So yeah, it was kind of neat to see it finally printed. We'd sold it when we were younger to friends and family, so we'd make a few copies on like the photocopy machines to a few people, but to actually have a bunch of issues out there. And then one of the coolest shows, like I've been to SatCon a couple times, not many times, but I didn't do super well at it, but I saw a kid, he bought my book, and I was walking around and I saw him reading it, and I was like, that was so cool just seeing this kid enjoying my book. And he became one of my biggest fans. And I actually ran into him at Empire Comics one time when on Free Comic Book Day, and I had my shirt on, and his dad said, "Oh, my son loves that book," and I'm like, "Oh, cool, I'm the artist." And and then he actually bought one and had me sign it there at the shop, and that was really cool too.
Yeah, I can remember one of this from that first WonderCon. I saw a social media post by a kid. He's like, "I saw two cool things. There's the new 3DS and Plotless comics, right?" And I was like, "Well, that's cool. We're ranking up there with Nintendo." But yeah, seeing somebody read your books in the hallway, or come up to your table all excited because their friend bought it and they just loved it, and so they got the word of mouth and came up. One time we had a guy come to our table, and he was dressed, ironically, my character Satyr Cat wears kind of a blue suit, but this guy, I don't know if he wasn't especially a furry. He didn't have a lot of furry stuff, but he was wearing a blue spandex suit, and he was sort of dressed like a cat. He had cat ears and a tail, and as he flipped through my comic, he would occasionally make some meowing sounds, and I leaned over to Matt. I'm like, "I can't say for sure, but I think I got a customer here." He bought, I think he bought 2 or 3 of my comics, so that was funny. But yeah, no, we it's fun to have people excited about the books, and actually I sell a lot of comics to old ladies too because they like cats, and I don't know. So I probably have an old lady fan base compared to Matt.
And do you ever have someone walk up to the table and be like, "Hey, aren't you guys the guys that do this?" And be like, "No, sorry, that's not us." And they're like, "Oh no."
I don't think I've had that too much. I think most people just have no idea who I am. But
They all know who I am.
yeah, Matt shines me.
What's the process that you go through to produce your comics? I mean, is it all digital now, or I mean, when I was growing up, of course, it was still pen and ink, and everything was done by hand.
My first few books are all like pen and ink and Prismacolor, and then I gradually started doing backgrounds digitally. My latest couple issues are all digital, but I'm taking my original artwork that I inked from like years ago, and I'm cleaning it up and redoing it, so I kind of have a layout for it already. It's my Christmas special that I'm trying to get ready by November. So I've been working on that one. That's been a lot of fun. And then looking at how the art's evolved is pretty cool. But yeah, I kind of go back and forth. I do a lot of original pen and ink artwork at the shows because people like to buy original art. That's the only problem with digital is you don't have any original artwork to sell. And so I just draw characters and pictures at the shows sometimes. And I go back and forth. A lot of people like the pen and ink version, and some like the digital version because it looks cleaner, but then the gradation effects and the texture of the original artwork is really cool, and it's cool to look at in the Star Wars books. And I think Cory does a little bit of the same thing.
I'm addicted to undo on my digital devices. So when the technology finally got there, like we've got some good tablet devices, so I spend a lot of time on my digital tablet drawing. So I do a lot less paperwork these days, just because I was a graphic designer for 20 years, and so I learned the Adobe suite pretty well, and so I just have a natural inclination to want to do things digitally, but I do sometimes miss the pencil on paper feeling though, so I need to spend some more time doing that. I back when I was in art school doing figure drawing and head drawing and things like that, it was there is a nice tactile sensation of pencil on paper, but no undo without a bit of erasing.
I do have a
Well,
question.
and,
Sorry. Do you
go ahead.
guys ever plan on like doing like anything, bringing your pictures to life, like in the form of a cartoon or any form of anime or anything like that?
I would
Yeah,
love to do it if I had the ability. It's something I've been kind of learning. I have manga studio, I think it's Animate or something like that, that I've had for years. It's still on disc, but they have some new things that you can use to do things. And um, I would hire it out or I'd have to learn a lot of animation.
Fair enough.
yeah. I think that's probably the kind of thing we need to pitch to a studio to have it made. We haven't really formulated that yet. We did uh, when we were down in one of the WonderCons in Anaheim. We did have somebody come by and asked if we were working with anyone yet, but that didn't quite go anywhere. We'll have to be a little bit more proactive about that, I suppose.
Fair enough. I mean, I can imagine that would be an easy thing to learn, but I mean, even if you
Yeah,
have to spend money to make money, that could turn out large too.
yeah, for sure. And I think there's a lot of, there's so much interest in animation these days,
Hmm.
especially. I really liked to see the resurgence of two-dimensional animation and some of the Netflix and other streaming services have brought to the foreground. So, seeing things like Regular Show take off and uh, where you get these kind of indie looking cartoons that are getting made.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really cool situation. I thought for sure we were kind of stuck in 3D land for a while, which wasn't not really my vibe.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, I'm a late '90s child, so growing up like anime was a kind of like a select crowd kind of thing. Growing up as a kid, we had like South Park and like some other cartoons that were like anime. But like now, I feel like it's becoming even larger than it was when it first came out.
Yeah,
Well,
for sure.
there were some beginnings of it, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know the word anime, but I guess late '60s there was the original Astro Boy, Eighth Man, who was my favorite, Tobor the Robot, and it's kind of a superhero guy, and so and Gigantor I think was another one. But those had to be anime, but that was like decades before it really took off or the name really caught.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
mainstream for say, yeah.
There's a really good, I guess, episode on a series called Matt with Four T's that I didn't even know about the manga tied to the Bay Area. These guys were trying to start manga years before it became really popular out here. Like I think it was back in the 70s, maybe even the 60s, and they put all this money in and were trying to get it out there, and they kept failing, and they finally it started to pick up a little bit, but it really has increased more recently. It's been a lot more popular.
So Matt and
You're
Cory.
at a oh,
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
no, go ahead, Michael. Michael, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, what advice and what would you recommend for anybody who is thinking about or starting to do comics or artwork, like comic strip or a book?
Yeah,
Um,
I
these days, flood social media. Like you got to be putting out like 3 or 4 things at least a week. I'm not good at that. I'm terrible at it. That's one of the reasons we haven't taken off more than we have. Um, I'm not good at marketing. If you know someone who knows how to market, or if you're good at marketing, I'm not a salesperson. But flooding social media with anything you can, at least 4 times a week, like progress on your books, pictures, things, and keep working at it. Even if it doesn't take off, keep enjoying it. And one of the nice things about the way we work is we don't really have deadlines, so we have a lot of time to rewrite 20 million times like Cory does with his Potato Cat comics. So he's
yeah,
got
for a plotless comic, I do a lot of plotting.
I have
Yeah,
8 books. I have 8 issues out, two collections. But his stories are great once they come out, and he's got some really fun ones lined up. If he ever drew them.
yeah.
He's working on one right now, though. So
I'm
that's
working on him. I'm chipping away.
get
I'll
back to
also
work.
say like in terms of like getting the artwork done and things, the advice I really enjoy, and I've heard this from others too, is just go for it, just do it. Like don't worry about if your art's good enough or if people are gonna like it or if you're satisfied with what it looks like. Just keep drawing, keep moving forward. I'd also say find artists you like, select, 4 or 5 different artists that are your favorite, pick out some details, try to draw like each one of them, pick out a few things that you like about each one and kind of incorporate it, elements of multiple different artists into your own style, and it kind of will develop your own flavor. And just have fun with it. Don't worry about what other people want to see, or just do what you want to do. And I think if you enjoy what you're doing, other people, you'll find a base that will enjoy the same kind of thing, and either way you'll have fun. If you're not having fun doing it, then for me it's kind of like, well, why do it? So yeah.
Todd
really
McFarlane recently said, Todd McFarlane recently said, keep drawing till you have like 50 issues. So when you finally get picked up, you'll have all those issues ready. So
Cool.
we got a ways to go for that.
Cory, that's a huge thing to have a mentality like that. Especially in the paranormal field, I kind of learned to carve my own path and like kind of upload and do as I felt like is something that's special to me. And even though it's something that doesn't appease to the large as a whole, it's something that I find dear to my heart, with a story that is genuine. And who knows, I might hit 5 people that feel the same way, and to me that means more than appeasing a million. So like when I was asked to be on a paranormal TV show, I was kind of like shocked. I was like, really? Me? Like, I'm just like the person does whatever. Like, that's kind of weird.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. At one of the shows, a woman came up and I explained to her the comic, and I'm very excited about my comic, right? So, and Matt
Absolutely.
also chimed in with everything he's excited about. And she's like, it's so funny because the energy we brought, she's like, you're like teenage boys who didn't grow up in that way. Like you. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm glad you said in that way. And then secondly, I kind of wear that as a badge of honor. I've got the youthful exuberance about my weird little comic book.
Absolutely.
Cory and Matt, we're in the age of AI, and incredible things are being created. I recently was watching, this guy did a remake of Backrooms, the movie, and he did an incredible job. He did a 4-hour movie. I only saw about maybe 30 minutes of it, but from what I saw, it looks really good. Now with AI, you can probably take your characters and make an absolutely cool cartoon and get a lot of followers. What do you think about that?
First, I have to ask you, do you work for Skynet? Because we end up talking way too much about AI. And I don't like it. I like some of the stuff it can do. A friend of ours just wrote a really cool song about my wife with AI, so it came out really cool. So there's some really cool stuff it can do, but I hate what it's doing to this generation for careers. Like kids are coming out of college, and the stupid AI bots won't even let people see their resumes, and it's just a huge burden to anyone, because if it's not made right for the bots, then they don't even look at your resume, so people miss opportunities. I do like some of the cool things it would do. I like the ability that if you can't animate, that you could get something animated, but it does take away the human touch to it in a lot of ways. But yeah, I'm not a fan of it. I can appreciate that there's uses for it. But yeah, I'm pretty much opposed to having an AI make my cartoons. Sorry to sound vehement about it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty early days. I think eventually it'll settle into where the aspect of it that is a tool will be good. I have the ethical concerns of the sourcing of the training data being scraped from people's artwork without their consent or compensation. That's kind of my main issue with it. I think it's an interesting technology, but right now it's kind of feeding off the art community in an unethical way. But yeah, so I think it'll eventually get to a point where it's an incorporated thing, and hopefully they figure out the ethics of it a little bit better, and it'll be used. I think there's a little bit. I think companies too are eyeballing it as we can save a bunch of money by cutting out the artists, but eventually, you need to keep feeding it. Yeah, you need to feed it with real art. So So
I totally
yeah,
agree with Phil. What Phil said at that Plotless conf. He's quiet, but what he said was really cool at the end. He's talking about how they're building those huge cooling stations in Florida for the AI tech, and like he was saying, it was like one of the worst things that's ever happened. And I don't know that it's the worst thing that ever happened, but I do agree with his opinion of it.
yeah. Yeah, so it's we'll see how things shake out. I'd love if we get this made into a cartoon or something. I'd love for that to involve as many human creators as could make it special. I do worry that that AI would make it feel a little off for what I'm going for. I definitely uh, value the artistic, the kind of the individual artistic decisions of each element of the story.
Are there any dreams of bringing or expanding your universe of the toys, games, and so on?
Oh yeah, we'd love to sell out.
Yeah, Matt's made a whole bunch of. He used to take. I don't know if you're familiar with the modeling clay Sculpey or Fimo, and we used to create. Matt made quite a few of these little figures. We were designing up little action figures and things, and he would sculpt them up out of these Fimo and Sculpey things and bake them in the oven. But they came out really cool. Often they had glow in the dark eyes and claws and things like that. So they're fun. But yeah, that'd be awesome to get some. I think we haven't looked into it recently, like what's going on. I imagine there's a lot more possibility now. If we wanted to risk sending our stuff out to China, and I'd probably be surprised to see a whole bunch of Seder Cat toys flooding the Chinese market or something. But
to not injection mold them, but create molds from the
Yeah.
Put whatever plastic mixture in there and paint them, or with 3D.
Yeah.
Or
need to
3D printing
modeling.
has come a long way as well. There's some pretty cool stuff you can do with 3D printing. We did at RetroX in Idaho, one of the mascots for the show made this through a 3D printer, and it like moves the arms and legs. I'll turn off the effect here a second.
Very cool.
It's like their mascot, but it actually prints this way, and it's smoother, and it's got moving arms and legs. So that kind of inspired me to want to maybe look more into 3D printing. But I think making a mold would be cool as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or you could 3D print a mold or 3D print a model and then make a mold out of that and use it as a mold. Yeah, a lot of cool possibilities these days. The technology's come so far. It is exciting to see. Even just with printing our comic book, it's gotten a lot cheaper. When we were first starting out, there was no way to print a comic book without bringing $5,000 or $6,000 up front and printing out
that
a
was
run
discouraging.
of offset. Yeah,
we got to go to a printing place in San Jose through a youth group that we were in when we were younger, and we asked the artist, "Oh, how much do you need to start up a comic?" And here we were high school kids in the '90s, and he's like, "Oh, you need about $5,000 to $7,000 to print a book, but printing's come a long way, so you can get things done way more affordably, and you can do them in smaller runs, so you don't bankrupt your house trying to print things." But back then, it was a different story. You had to put a lot of money out there.
So, Matt and Cory, I'm curious because I'm sure you write your own dialogue. Do you ever use AI to help give you ideas if you get stuck on how to get dialogue flowing again, or do you stay away from AI even in dialogue and just walk away and then come back to it later and go, okay, now I got it?
The dialogue comes pretty easy. We've never used AI for any kind of dialogue or story writing. Our characters are pretty specific in the way they behave. They're all jerks, but they think they're great. So there's a lot of humor that comes with that, and they kind of, in some ways, write themselves once you get the story going. We usually have a gag that we come up with. Like when I did my Star Wars spoof, like this way you can see it a little better.
Oh,
this is what Kit Wallace do. You can see the Ewok head in the background. So I kind of wrote the whole story around the gag. And I have like cats and stormtroopers, and they're like these characters called bird-footed legions. This is one of my favorite panels. I don't know if you'll be able to see it very well, but those are cats.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that is cool.
And
That's cool.
and one of these, he's learning how to use a lightsaber, and the stormtrooper comes up behind him, and he doesn't see him. And not that it would have helped if he saw him; he would have done it on purpose. But the lightsaber goes right through his head.
Oh, they are sort of crossed over into the multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. They are. Yeah.
We got Ewoks. We call them Weewoks in that comic, so we wouldn't get sued all the way. But
That's cool.
I don't know if that'll apply with this.
But when you look at it, it's a variant. So
Yeah, there you go.
Paid publicity, right?
Not a parallel time
Just to us, people will know who we are.
that is cool. That's cool. I got something here for Steve Ward. I bet you when you were a kid, and I'm not a psychic, you were reading Devil Dinosaur.
Actually, I didn't. I got a hold of some of them later. Something Kirby did the art, right? Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
And was that for DC or when he moved from Marvel?
That was Marvel.
It was Marvel. Okay. I kind of phased out of comics in the about 1970, 71. And then in later years, when I was in the Navy, I got back into comics, and I found this great comic book store in Boston, halfway between New London and the shipyard, Portsmouth shipyard. So when I used to read a lot, but when you're in the military or whatever, you're interrupted all the time. You got too much to do. So I got back into comics where I could have these little bursts of entertainment, And this store was great because it had all the new stuff, but if you went into one section, you could get the older stuff. And of course, I would shell out a lot, like $40 back in those days was a lot of money, but I'd shell out $40 for some of the older X-Men and that kind of thing. Although let me just tell you a quick story. I had the first issue of the X-Men and the Avengers. I was way up north on Bois Blanc Island in the Straits of Mackinac in Michigan. And my mom went over to Sheboygan, and I gave her a list of comics to try and find for me because I knew they were coming out. And she found those first issues of the Avengers and the X-Men, and I was in seventh heaven.
and when I was talking about Devil Dinosaur, Steve reading it and myself reading it because of our age, we were reading Devil Dinosaur in 1891.
Yes, yeah. During the mysterious airship sightings,
Wow.
And Paul would talk about the mysterious airship sightings with me.
That's right. Well, listen, Matt, Cory, how can people buy your comic books? Where can they go to get them?
Well, the easiest way.
Plotless.com. Go ahead, Cory. Sorry.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. I was going to say that the easiest way is our website. Yeah, plotless.com. If you happen to be going to a comic show, we've been, you'll never know where you'll find us. You'll have to go to plotless.com or follow us on socials to see where we're going to pop up next. But we do a lot of California shows, and we occasionally will pop out to neighboring states like Utah or Idaho or I don't know. Did you do Nevada? Yeah, I
did Silver City.
Reno show. Yeah.
Last year.
Yeah. So we pop around, Southern California, Northern California when we get them. But yeah, so that's a good way to meet us and get our autographs on them and things. But if for most people, if they want them right now, they can go online. You can actually read a couple of our comics on our website, again at plotless.com, or if you want a physical copy, you can make a purchase there as well. We've got our collections or individual issues. Yeah.
I wish you guys the best success. You guys,
thank you so much.
The characters are awesome. I mean, and your animation blows me away. I love it. I love it. Now we're going to go ahead and shift to our next guest, and that is Tim Swartz. And he came out with a book called The Persistence of Ghosts. And Tim, I want to know what got you going in writing this book. And also, too, do you need any people to do any animation in your next book?
Well, it was actually comics that got me into it there, Paul. I do want to say, and I didn't want to talk about myself when we were talking about comics, but I mean, I grew up on DC comics, especially Superman and Batman. The Legion of Super Heroes and all those characters. But what a little bit later, when I was able to find these, what really was a big influence was the Warren magazines, like Creepy and Eerie and Vampirella. Yeah. Those and then I discovered like the old EC comics, Tales from the Crypt and some of those, which had been redone and to like some of these really lurid Eerie Publications was the name of the company, and they would put out like what was it, like Tales of the Vampire, stuff like that. And they were just like the most gruesome black and white comics you had ever seen. I mean, cannibalism and heads being decapitated, eyes popping out of people's head. With still attached to the optic cords. Oh my God, I ate that stuff up. And that had a lot of influence on me. Some people would say not a good influence. But and then graduated from there to like Heavy Metal magazine. I don't know if any of you ever read heavy metal.
Yes.
I mean that stuff, because it opened up a whole new world of European artists that were fantastic. And I mean, when I was younger, like Steve and a lot of others of you here, I mean, I drew comics. I wanted to be a cartoonist, but I was my own worst enemy. I was never satisfied with how good I thought my artwork was, and that I eventually just gave it up and then moved more towards videography and photography and stuff like that. But oh my God, I mean, comics had such a big influence on me when I was going. And unfortunately, I grew up in a small town, so there was no comic book store. The best that we had was the Hook's drugstore, where you could go and buy comics, but it was limited, and there was probably Marvel comics there too, but I don't remember. It was always DC for me. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff, had a big influence on me as I grew up. And if I suppose that if I lived later when the internet was a thing, I may have continued on more with it. But I mean, back before the internet, small town, you didn't get a lot of love if you were trying to draw comics and comic books or comic strips. Like the newspaper comic strips were a big influence on me as well. Peanuts and strips like that. But which has nothing to do with your question there, Paul.
I did read that Charles Schultz really liked horror comics when he's growing up in a biography. So
yeah.
There you go.
And Tim, again, I'm going to say I'm not a psychic, but I bet you love the artwork of Frank Frazetta.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Frank Frazetta was he was great, and drew for a lot of those black and white types of comic magazines. So yeah, I he did the cover for one of John Keel's paperback books.
Yes, yes, Tim,
Yeah,
it was the 1991 edition of the Mothman Prophecies with that
yep, that
striking,
well,
and it's been reprinted, so you can actually get that at the Mothman Museum.
Mysterious Creatures from Time and Space. I think that was the name of it as well.
Well, the original title was oh God, yeah, Strange Creatures from Time and Space.
Strange Creatures. That's it.
Which became the Guide to Mysterious Beings. Didn't have that you're talking about the Frazetta cover with the patrolman. He's got his hand up and he's got all these cryptids coming at him in the illustration. Isn't that great? I got that poster.
It is. Oh gosh, I'd love to get a poster like that. That'd be great.
But they eliminated the patrolman with his hand up. They just have the creatures, and I thought that's a shame.
Yeah, I think I think the copy of the paperback book that I have now is the one without the patrolman. It's just the creatures.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, Frazetta and Wally Wood. I loved his stuff. I loved his stuff too. For some of the obvious reasons.
But for me, it was Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. Man,
Ditko,
man, those guys.
And I met Stan Lee. What a great guy. What a great guy.
Yeah, I wonder if Jack Kirby felt that way after a while.
I don't think so. But the shame of it is that Kirby didn't see the amazing success of all these films and everything. He didn't live to see it, and that's.
I know that is sad. That's sad. Yeah.
No, but I mean, you see that all the time. I mean, look at Disney. Look at all the artists who did stuff for Disney, either for the comic strips, comic books, or even the movies that Disney took all the credit, and they got they got salary, and that was about it.
The time is going so freaking fast. And Tim, we got some like 7 minutes because Hercules is over there on my butt. Is saying we got 7 minutes. Can you tell us a little bit about your book right here, and how they can get it, and what's it about?
Sure. Well, The Persistence of Ghosts, it's pretty much, like how the title describes. It's an examination of ghosts throughout history. And, despite the fact that, here we are in the 21st century, supposedly, know all about science and all this other good stuff, but ghosts are still with us, and they haven't changed anything. The ghosts still act the same way that they did, 2,000 years ago. And I bet you that our ancient cousin species, like the Neanderthals, had their ghosts as well. And I mean, if you would go and take some of the ghost stories that we have today, heck, even if you take them from like pop culture, like say movies, like the Poltergeist or the Amityville Horror, and go back 500 years and tell those stories, people would nod their head to say, yeah, that's exactly how it all works. That's how little the phenomena has changed all of these centuries. And that has always fascinated me. Why do they still act the same way? Why do they still do the same, things that they do, knock on the walls, throw things, walk up and down the hallways, at night, pull the covers off of you and scare the cats, stuff like that. And, but of course, I mean, the book is more than 300 pages, so there's a lot more. Paul, you've got some excellent chapters in that book. Hercules, he does. Scott Corrales, people like that. I mean, all this comes together to really, it's just it's an examination on possibly why ghosts act the way they do, and maybe a kind of a hypothesis on the true nature of ghosts. You know, are they actually proof of life after death or something else?
And Tim, it's great that you have continued the tradition that you and Timothy Green Beckley started years ago with this publishing, Global Communications and Inner Light Publications. So it was a shame that when Tim passed, but he was so prolific. But I love that digest-sized magazine, that catalog he put out. I mentioned that before. And that was so much fun. That was a throwback to the 60s when you could get stuff like that and order all kinds of cool stuff. But it's really great that you have continued that tradition that you were part of even before this.
And
Yeah,
here's
well, that's
the Beckley book.
oh yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
That was what. Let's see, what is that one? That was Tim Beckley's. That was really his last book that he put out before he passed away. That he worked entirely on, and he was so proud of that book because there's a lot of material in there about the African American community and their participation in the whole UFO mystery, which has kind of gotten hasn't gotten really nearly the amount of attention that it should. You know, especially groups from the 50s and 60s, and Tim Beckley wanted to make sure that that these people were known and honored.
I hate to rag on the proceedings, but we only have a couple of minutes left. I have something else scheduled a little later on. So if you kindly share how people can find you and enter your wonderful worlds, I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. Well, my books, you can always find them on Amazon.com. Just type in my name, Tim R. Swartz, and they'll all come tumbling out for your reading pleasure, both as print ebooks and now a couple of them as audiobooks. Persistence of Ghosts, Weird Time, Mimics the Others Among Us, and a bunch of other books that I worked on with Timothy Green Beckley. And of course, my website is timrswartz.com.
And Tim is a living legend, and I have a show planned where we'll be celebrating him and his life work for an entire hour. So that's coming up very, very soon. Thank you so much, Tim, for everything. You're awesome.
My pleasure.
I hand the baton back to Paul. I'd like to introduce everybody else and their contact.
All right. Yeah. Cory, Matt, how can people reach you, and where can they buy your comic books?
Yeah, come see us at Plotless.com. That'll have links to all our social media, and our web shop is there. And like I say, we can read some of our comics on that website directly and for free to get a taste of what we're all about and what fun there is to be had in our crazed little minds.
I heard that. Quickly, me, Paul Dale Roberts. You can Bing or Google me, and you'll see some of my articles. See some of my books. Go out into the movie theaters and watch Obsession.
Awesome movie.
Yes, awesome
so
movie.
It's so unsettling, but it's so good.
Yeah, you know this part. No.
Now, Paul, was that a spoiler?
Oh my God, that movie is, oh man, it's one of those type of movies where you watch it and it stays in your head. It's just it's terrible. I mean, it's great. Okay, Steve, how can people contact you?
Steve Ward, Facebook, type in Point Pleasant. You'll probably find me. Come and see me on Saturdays at the Mothman Museum.
Fantastic. Sage Gatto, how can people reach you?
You can find me at Sage Gatto on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. I'm at Steel City Ghost Chasers, or you can just search my name. It should pop up as well. I post and follow all sorts of paranormal and historical content. And also, please check out Ghost Mob St. Albans on YouTube, and you'll be able to see me on there as well.
Fantastic. Michael Kopf, how can people reach you?
Okay, you can find me on Facebook under Michael Kopf. I also have books on Amazon, and you can find me lately on Hercules and Paul's shows. So those are the places most common where I seem to be right now.
And that's fantastic. And you guys, whoever's seen the Obsession knows what I'm doing.
Look at that. Another spoiler, for crying out loud.
Yeah, see that movie if you have a chance.
It's an amazing adventure.